For the greatest show in fantasy football history, hosted by the incomparable Scott Connor and the one and only Ray GQ, I present to you Destination Chill, where football and fantasy collide.
Good evening, good people. We are back for another Destination Chill after taking a week off for the Fantasy Football Expo. There's a lot going on. We are 18 days away from the start of the season. And I just noticed in our intro, it started with a Derrick Henry on the Titans and a Stephon Diggs on the Bills. We're going to have to get that updated as we get into the 2024 season. But a lot of people I see already in the chat back with us for another one. Ja Webb. I see Gump in the building.
Let's go.
I see Zach Linton in the building. Shank and Shig was on Dynasty Portfolio with Gene and I the other night, chilling with us while we did a Best Ball Mania draft. So another familiar face. But Ray, back into it. We're 18 days from the start of the season. There's been a lot that's gone on. We have done a lot in the DD community over the last couple weeks to set things up for the season, including a bunch of drafts, more drafts than I think people in here even really understand from an underdog perspective. This guy sends me messages of just scrolling his phone on the clock. What's the most drafts you've been on the clock? Slow drafts at one time. Has it got to 250? Is it close? Slows at one time?
Slows at once. I think I had like 198 at one time. 198 on the clock at one time. It's crazy, man. It's crazy right now. But I love it. I love it. This is what we do. I enjoy it. But 198 was the max that I've had on the clock at the same time.
Yeah, I'm over 100 right now, but seeing something that's almost 200 is just absolutely ridiculous. But I forgot to bring you in. We're back for August 18th, 18 days from the start of the season. It's crept up on us super quick. We're here to talk some preseason, some best ball strategy, just really chop it up. We didn't get a chance to do a show last week. So what is good, my friend? Back to be on the mic with you.
I'm great. I'm excited. I'm excited for the show tonight. It's always good to chop it up with you and to see so many people in the chat. Cole World, Best Ball on Call, Matt, Jason, Gump. It's just good. It's exciting because we spent so much time this season, this process, just talking theoretical stuff. And now, like, the game is here. We got preseason ball. Got to see a lot of Patrick Mahomes, Caleb Williams. We're in drafts. We did a really unique draft that we're going to talk about at the end of the show with our community and our patrons. Patreon.com/ALLGAS. Best community on the planet, and I promise it's only getting better. But I'm excited, man. I want to talk through some stuff. Justin Fields, Malik Nabers, some strategies, some do's, some don'ts. Chop it up, talk ball with y'all, man. I'm excited, Scott.
Yeah, well, let's start with this one. We didn't get a chance to talk about it because it didn't happen except for 3-4 days ago. We got the news, but you and I got into a little bit of I wouldn't say a heated debate, but I think we might view this a little bit differently. So let's talk some JJ McCarthy. We got into a nice little theory discussion on JJ McCarthy. Is the injury something that actually creates a different view of him from a dynasty perspective? Because I even said I was tough to really figure out what I wanted to do with him right away. Do I want to sell? Do I want to buy? Kind of what's your outlook on JJ? Because I think a lot of people have taken the stance of, I mean, legit, I just read Jeff's breakdown of McCarthy. He did his little drop in the Discord. Another reason to sign up for the Discord is we got Jeff Mueller in there, literally giving real-time updates on batches of players. And his tagline, Ray, under JJ McCarthy was, this is actually great for him long-term in terms of like the injury is a complete zero, but the impact is probably something we can't really measure, which is he's not out there. You know what I mean? He's not out there. Even if he was only going to play half a season or 6 games, like all of that is gone. All of the practice reps are gone. How do you view that from a guy that we probably thought needed to sit, but also needed to play a little bit? Feels like he's going to get in there next year. And I've even said there's going to be a window on him where as long as everything goes positive and they start talking him up in the offseason, there's going to be some JJ McCarthy bump or hype that comes back, right? How do you view this from a football perspective, though? Like, the dude's going to miss the entire year. He's going to miss even the opportunity to get in a couple times here and there. Like, he's not going to get any of those live game reps except for that one game, the 3 quarters or whatever it was he played in the preseason. That is it. Everything else probably won't start back up until like mini camps next year. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate that after this debut that we've got on the screen right now, 11 for 17, 2 touchdowns, pushing the ball downfield, showing a command of the offense. It's unfortunate that we're not going to get to see him on the field, right? It's unfortunate that we're not going to get a chance to see him play because I think most people were expecting him to be on the field probably after week 5. They got the early bye, let Sam Darnold go out there. They got a tough schedule. And then after that, get your young gun in there. I think that the biggest thing, it's not so much that I think him missing the season is going to derail anything with his career, but there were probably some valuable reps that it would have been nice to have him gain this season. But not going to happen. Sam Darnold's the guy, something we've talked about on this channel quite a bit all offseason, that there's a good chance Sam Darnold is a sneaky ad and a pickup to just score you some points. I'm very interested to see what the community feels about him. Do people view him the same way they view Michael Penix? Do they view that situation the same way they do Atlanta? And we have talked about it so many times, Scott. If you couldn't get a first-round pick, a 25 first, you couldn't get a 26 first trade for Michael Penix. He's the next closest thing to a first-round pick in 2025. I don't know. I don't know if it really affects or impacts his value. It'd be interesting to see how people value him versus, and let me say this now, because I know a lot of people talk that shit right now. Oh, the 25 class isn't that good. By the time we get to April, there'll be 4 or 5 quarterbacks that people love. Name them. Beck, Sanders, Ewers, whomever it is. Riley Leonard, don't know. But there'll be plenty of quarterbacks at that point in time. And my question to you, Scott, is do you think he's got the cachet, the swag, the hype, the enthusiasm, whatever, the Hopi and Magic Beans that going into next season versus some of the quarterbacks who could be top 15, top 10, top 5 picks? Would you prefer a Penix or a JJ McCarthy over one of those guys? I think that's more so where I'm at. Like, where's his value going to land in relation to some of the guys that are going to be coming out in 2025? For McCarthy himself, man, let Sam Darnold do his thing. Listen, I'm a firm believer. A leopard does not change his spots. Sam Darnold is who he is. He's going to play well at times, and he's going to look god-awful at other times. It's JJ McCarthy's team in 2025. Real question is, how are you going to value him versus maybe some of the other cats coming in from the class, or Michael Penix himself, Bo Nix potentially this year as well?
Well, let's talk through it. I think both of us, with what we think about the 25 class, but more importantly, just how we play Dynasty. Would you rather hold your value in JJ McCarthy right now or a 25 first? Let's just call it a random
25 first.
We're on the same page. If you can just take him and dump him for a first and you hold your value in the first, take your chances with what you can get with that first. Doesn't mean you make the pick.
A lot of people won't like that. A lot of people will not like that.
But let's talk through it. It doesn't mean you're trying to draft Carson Beck or Shador Sanders or Jalen Milroe. We're not even looking at the quarterbacks next year. No. We're looking at what could that pick be between now and the start of the next draft season. So that's the easy one first for McCarthy, if you can get that. I mean, he was like 105 through 108 anyway, and it's not like you were easily moving later first for 25 first on the clock in most leagues anyway. So you have to say the injury has hurt him a little bit, right? Like if you did your rookie draft over right now, is he going ahead of Xavier Worthy, Ray?
No.
Is he going ahead of Brian Thomas? Probably not.
Probably not.
So he's probably, 109, 110, 111, 112? I mean, he may not go ahead of Nix because Nix is playing. That's the next one. I mean, Nix is probably the least sexy of the quarterbacks in this class, but he's starting. I saw the report from, I can't remember the game. I think his name it's Zach, one of the Broncos beat writers, but he said Bo Nix is the starter. There's no questions. He's going to start from day one. He's been positive thus far. Reports on him. I mean, maybe his weapons aren't that great, but it feels like you have some potential with Nix to where he's probably more of a live asset. Unless he just goes out and stinks up the joint, then you'd rather have McCarthy, but that's the risk you take. But I think Nix, where would you be at? I think I'd take Nix over McCarthy. I think if he's good for a couple games, it's much more flexible, right?
I don't want to talk too much about Nix. Jay Rich and I have got we got some things to talk about tomorrow on Bo Nix.
Move on.
We'll move on. But yeah, right now I would probably take him over McCarthy. It's interesting, man. I see Theo. Shout out to Theo Darling in the chat. Said I'm definitely taking JJ over 25 first. And then Colin, shout out to Colin, man, subscriber to the channel. Appreciate the love, baby. Said McDowell, that's my dog, Ryan McDowell from DLF. Posted that the last 3 first-round QBs to sit a whole season, they gain value going into the second season. So, I mean, what's interesting about McCarthy is this. Shout out to D-Bro, man. That's my dog. He's going to be on Wake Up, not tomorrow, but the following Monday. Like, there are very few people who were as high on J.J. McCarthy. I'm talking about QB1 across the board. And throughout the entire offseason, there was a little bit out. We want to see him play. We'll see what he does. He's got Jefferson. But the biggest thing that is helping McCarthy, Scott, is that he did play that one preseason game. And it does not matter. It does not matter that it was against 3rd, 4th, 5th string players from the Raiders. It doesn't matter. You know, the only thing that literally matters with him is people saw him throwing the ball all over the field, Scott. People saw those highlights that we showed. People saw that. And that one preseason game, because I'd venture to say prior to that game, or had he gone out there and not performed well, people would say, oh, man, give me the first. It's a black box prospect. I don't know what he is. But that 11 for 17 performance with 2 touchdowns, that right there is it's going to hold. And here's the thing that makes his value increase. Let's talk about McCarthy for a minute, right? Sam Darnold goes out there and he stinks it up. He does what Sam Darnold does. He stinks it up. People will be clamoring for J.J. McCarthy. Wait until we get a real quarterback in there. You know what I'm saying? Wait until we actually get a real body in there. Now, that's going to create one or two things. How much patience will dynasty managers have where in 2025, the season starts and he does not look good out the gate? What if he struggles early? Are people going to just give him the grace, or are they going to be like, oh, man, it's a year and a half. I haven't gotten anything out of him? Or what if Sam Darnold plays okay, Scott? There's a world where he plays well. Kevin O'Connell, Justin Jefferson, you got a good offense. He plays well. Not well enough to keep the job, but good enough to where people are expecting McCarthy not just to come in and have growing pains as a first-year player, but, hey, you need to be better than Darnold, who got us to 8 wins, 8 and 9 for Sam Darnold, pushed for a playoff spot. I'm just curious how people are going to it feels like he's in a damned if you do, damned if you don't type situation. I'm very, very interested on how this one is going to play out, because outside of a few, most people did not have him as a top 1, 2, or 3 quarterback in this class. But now I want him over a 25 first. It's just interesting how that stuff plays out, man.
Well, let's go back to that comment about they gain value, because that's a topic that I think we can dive a little bit deeper in and talk about the why. Because you know what else will gain value in the offseason or from now until the end of the season? A lot of other stuff. And you know why? It's not because they did anything more or did anything that's worth of them gaining value. You know how McCarthy gains value? It's because Jared Goff loses value when it gets to February.
Yeah.
Right? It's everything else that is, it's not even gaining value. It is, if we are now doing a new, and I'm guessing, I didn't see the tweet from Ryan when he put that out, but I'm guessing what he's referring to is probably, he's at DLF, probably the ADP of looking at their values between the season and then getting into the offseason, right? But if you're doing a startup in February, right, don't you expect the guys like Goff, Purdy, those guys are going to fall just a little bit because the season's way far away, right? They're just not as desirable. So the premise here is that McCarthy, and the reason why I can buy the argument of he's going to gain value is because there's no risk for him to lose value. Doesn't mean you like him, but there's nothing he can really do to lose value, barring the Vikings do something strange and put his position as the next starter in jeopardy. Bo Nix is playing. The bad part about playing Bo Nix in today's Dynasty game is if he goes out and the Broncos suck and he looks like Bryce Young, then he sucks.
He's buried.
Now, it might not be he sucks. It might need that they need to have a whole offseason to revamp what they have, and then he'll gain some value back, just like has Bryce Young. But the fact that he's out there playing actually puts him at a higher risk to lose value. And when I say lose value, I want everybody to understand, I don't mean lose value in startup ADP. Because guess what's going to gain value in startup ADP? A lot of stuff that's young. Guess what's going to lose value? Old stuff. Now, the reason we like Michael Penix is for the same reason, right? We're going to see him. Now, this is another thing I wanted to bring up to you that we haven't talked about, but we thought we were going to see a preseason full of Michael Penix, right? Just tearing it up, whipping the ball all over. And now the coach comes out and says he's not going to play anymore. So, I mean, I don't know how I feel about that. I think I wish I would have seen Michael Penix play every game, like a half or 3/4 in every game. But the fact he's already getting kind of the starting treatment is positive. But the reason I said Penix was like a first is because he's not at risk of losing value because he's probably not at risk of playing. So the only thing positive can just be, and we know we've seen it with Kirk Cousins before, right? He is Jekyll and Hyde. And there's going to be some Hyde moments where you go, man, Penix would look good if he was in there. And that's all you needed if you invested in Penix. It doesn't mean he's going to be better than McCarthy or better than May or better than Nix. It's just, man, I can sit over here and just watch that money tree continue to grow and no one's picking the dollars off of it. Like it's just growing until I want to decide to try to sell it. Because I've heard some, I'll just say this. I've heard some NFL people. I was listening to the Locked On Scouting pod, and they were talking about Michael Penix. There's some flaws in his game, things that they were not sure he was going to be able to fix this far into his career. So it's just interesting that we kind of think, oh, he's this polished, perfect prospect, but it also sounds like a lot of people think he needed to play more. So I don't know. I think it's
well, what does that mean? There are some people, Scott, who think that I saw some people tweet out that they believe that Michael Penix is going to start sometime this year. That everything just feels fishy around. It doesn't feel. And I don't listen. I'm not here to negotiate and argue about damn contracts. That is not my specialty. I don't know how they can or cannot or could or could not trade Kirk Cousins. But I've seen more and more people say it just doesn't, something isn't adding up with the Falcons in this selection. And the fact that even if you don't believe in Trey Lance, what I appreciate about the Dallas Cowboys doing, they're just letting him play. Throw the damn ball 50 times. I don't care. It's preseason. Go practice. Like, why not give them live in-game reps? And I get it. Practice is where you get a lot of that's where a lot of the information is kind of handled. But it just seems very odd that he's getting this kind of veteran preference already with Kirk Cousins on the roster. I don't know, man. This one is and let me tell you how I know it's not just me feeling this. I'm in a shit ton of super flex drafts in Underdog. Kirk Cousins sits, man. Like people are they're not as excited to press that draft button right now on Kirk Cousins as maybe the enthusiasm to do that a couple of months ago was.
Yeah, and that's why I'd probably prefer Penix over McCarthy, just for that there could be something more you could do in season with Penix. But if you told me, hey, I just want, because sometimes in Dynasty, the best asset is the one that has zero volatility of going down. It is what it is. Like, if you can tell me McCarthy is basically a first round pick, we already said we would park that asset as a first instead of McCarthy. But if that's how your league is going to view him, I have no problem kind of investing in it. The curious thing, with something we can talk about maybe on another stream, is how do you get to buying McCarthy? Because people have put out some ridiculous stuff out there thinking you're going to be able to buy him for a cheap replacement QB and a second or something like that. I mean, you can try. But some of the deals I've seen for him have been like, I'm not actively going out and giving up a first to stash him. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so, I sent out some offers actually trying to buy him. And I send out Deshaun Watson for McCarthy. Team desperate for a quarterback in a 14-teamer declined it. Now they're not interested. They have no second quarterback, but they'd rather have McCarthy. So that immediately, what do? I send them offers for some of the stuff that they probably should get rid of if they don't want a second quarterback. And the response was, I'm going to wait to see how things play out. So it was really just what I think he's tough to buy. I think he's tough to just go and send a low ball offer because the person that has him is probably already viewing him as the same type of asset that you're trying to buy, if that makes sense. I saw a question in here, McCarthy versus Drake May, right? Is that even a debate for you? I know May's not in the same situation. I know he may not start the whole year. You'd give up McCarthy for May right now, wouldn't you?
I would take Drake May.
1 for 1.
I would take Drake May. I would take Drake. I think a lot of people, and I used to play like this, man. I really did. I used to play with this. I'll park them and I'll stash them until next year. And then next year, like, I don't got time for all that, man. Like, I'm dealing in this is the fan. I don't care if it's damn Dynasty, redraft. 2024 is the season. What can you do for me in 2024? If you can't do for me in 2024 and you're not Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, like those type of assets, there is no, I'll wait until next year. Like, those are the type of players. And this is the benefit of playing in multiple leagues. I can go get another McCarthy. Like, he is not some unattainable asset that I've got to hold. You send me an offer. If I'm a contender or trying to contend and you send me your Deshaun Watson for JJ McCarthy, I'm smashing the accept button. Smash. I'm not thinking twice. I will be able to get JJ McCarthy some other time, some other way. I'm chasing the points. I just don't play like that anymore. I just do. There are a handful of players that I am just going to hold hell or high water. Handful of rookies that I would do that with, and he's not one of them.
So a couple more, then we'll move on to some other players. Graphic 13 said, Will Levis or McCarthy? Is the same thing applies if someone offered you Levis for an injured McCarthy? Would you do it? I mean, that feels like you could be selling your soul a little bit, but
I think there's always a
certain
line.
leagues, it's tough to get starting QBs, you know?
It would really depend. You're talking 4-point per passing touchdown league? Hell no. No, I don't think I would do that. It would have to be the right format, and my team would have to really, really be ready. It's not that I wouldn't trade McCarthy, but I'd try to get a different asset. Can I add something to McCarthy to get something better? I don't want to do a 1-for-1 for Will Levis. Deshaun Watson, I can do that. Will Levis, can I add something to McCarthy? Can I send you Tank Dell with McCarthy and get a better quarterback, right? Can I do something like that to upgrade the quarterback? I don't want to just make a 1-for-1. I'll take Bryce Young. I'll take a Jacoby Brissett and Taysom Hill. Like, it ain't that serious. There are other ways to skin, I'm not going to say a cat, but you get what I'm saying. There's other ways to accomplish the goal.
Yes. So I assume the other one he asked about was Baker Mayfield. I assume that one is a definite no-go for your McCarthy.
I would pass. I would try to, and when you get there, right? But I think the point to this conversation is, if those are your options, try to do something, try to add something to that player, whether that be McCarthy, Penix, whomever it is. Try to add something replaceable to that asset to get something better. Can I get Jared Goff? Can I get Dak Prescott? Can I, you know what I mean? I want something better. Dak Prescott, interesting name. But I want to stay in the rookie realm. Can we stay with the rookies real quick and talk about probably the hottest name in the NFL from mid-July till right now? My boy. I texted him the other day, told him great game, was sorry about the interceptions his quarterback threw. That's my boy. Malik Nabers, I was going to call you Jay, Scott. Malik Nabers. I want to talk about him because you and I have not had this conversation yet. We have not talked about the expectation for Malik. He's good. He is an incredible wide receiver talent. Not going to say he's a great NFL receiver yet. Not going to say he's some Hall of Famer, but he's an incredible prospect that has shown some things in practice and early in the preseason that can only make one excited. Yet, at cost, with that offense and that quarterback, I tweeted out, man, that I am all in on Malik Nabers, the talent. All in. I'm very, 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 very worried about the situation. Very worried about the situation. And I know 33% target share. Doesn't matter, Ray. 33%. Had 5 catches, 50-something yards. That's great. Garrett Wilson also had a 30-something% target share. And he was a wide receiver 3 for you all year. And it really feels like he is destined, Scott, to be on the DJ Moore, Terry McLaurin, that Drake London, Garrett Wilson path of extremely talented players marred by pedestrian QB play. And I don't care how good you are. If the guy can't get you the ball, it's a problem. Doesn't matter if your target share is 40%. Like, you just got a lot of targets for a wide receiver 3. So what are your thoughts on not his dynasty value, not any of that, but the cost associated with the player for this season?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here, but we talked about this a couple months ago where I went through, basically looked at all the comparable players to Malik Nabers, guys that fit extremely high criteria, right? Top 10 picks, best player on their offense. There was like 5 such players in the last 10 years that fit that, to where they literally walk in to an offense. They're the best player on the offense, and there's zero competition. So you almost off the rip can just assign them a 25% target share, maybe 30. Like, it could be 30 plus. But even if you gave him 30, you then have to look at, all right, we know he's going to get 100, let's call it 150 targets, whatever that percentage ends up being. Let's say 150 targets. But then you look at best case scenario, and I went through and looked at essentially the fantasy points that were created by Drew Lock and Daniel Jones for their careers. And then I actually eliminated the bottom part of that. So I gave both quarterbacks like the benefit of the doubt. Like, hey, we believed because we believed. I mean, I know last year you'll take the L on believing in Brian Daboll, right? Like, he's going to continue. It's going to be an offense we want pieces on. And
that was Jay. No, I didn't say that. That was Jay Rich. I was not in on Daniel Jones or Brian. That was not me. I refute it. It was not me.
There's no receipts anywhere found out there. But point is, if you even think like the offense could be okay because you trust Brian Daboll, you could even go back and look at what he did the last part with the Bills and in 2022 with the Giants, and just give Malik Nabers the benefit of that's going to be the efficiency that he gets, right? So let's even call it like league average, maybe slightly below. But just historically, the math doesn't add up. Even best case scenario, you end up getting somewhere like a mid-tier wide receiver 2 for Malik Nabers. Yet you look at Underdog, he's going at like wide receiver 18. Dynasty value, I mean, obviously his dynasty value is high. We'll talk about that in a second. But just the only reason to draft him is essentially you're hoping beyond hope.
Oh, it's straight
It's
hopium.
just a pure hopium bag where you're going, he is such a good talent that he just carries everything else around him. He can't fail because everyone else around him is average because he is just so good. Like you'll be the first to say this. You've said Jamar Chase is great, but the reason he was so great as a rookie is because he had Joe Burrow and the Bengals.
Absolutely.
Right? The reason Puka Nacua was great last year is because he had Sean McVay and Matt Stafford and the scheme that he was in. Justin Jefferson was great because he had Kirk Cousins in the system that he was in. So, I mean, Daniel Jones, Brian Daboll just probably isn't that. So, point being, he's a terrible investment. I've stopped drafting him an Underdog altogether. Give me Devontae Smith, DJ Moore, DK Metcalf, Cooper Kupp, every damn receiver that goes around him. I'm just skipping over Malik Nabers there. But to his dynasty value, Ray, this actually presents a very safe asset, right? Because we already know exactly what we're talking about here. What's the community going to do when this inevitability that he struggles with his 149 targets? What's going to be the response? None of it was his fault, right? Because he made some highlight plays, and it was like, can we just get him somebody that can get him the ball? Can we get a new coach, a new OC? Like, everything goes but him. And now it's like, man, I really wish I had more Malik Nabers. So that's already built in. Like, I think we're to the point where we've already seen social media's response to Daniel Jones not being like Patrick Mahomes, so he's just the worst quarterback in the league. They're already setting the stage. Doesn't matter what Nabers does. As long as he doesn't go out and just get 4 targets a game and get hurt constantly, like a complete disappointment. If he's just pretty good, it's not going to matter. It's going to be rocket ships are going to be upwards after the season just because he's not going to take any of the blame for anything.
Because they're getting a rookie quarterback and a new coach? I mean,
I agree with you. Just because they replaced Daniel Jones with, and I think you and Brandon have talked about the contract for Daniel Jones isn't even guaranteed he's going to be gone this year. So to say it's just going to be he's going to get his Aaron Rodgers or Kirk Cousins or Dak Prescott next year, like, I think that's a little too much hopium, but that's not going to matter. There is going to be a window from January to March where the Giants haven't done anything, but it's clear they're not going to probably roll with Daniel Jones as the future plan. So if that's the case, there's going to be a window where Malik Nabers continues to start going back up. So that would be the argument for him. That's it.
It's just, I find it maddening that in a space with so much bravado around the statistics in my process, and I've got all the data and the analytics and all the information, we see this shit year after year after year. And why do we think there's any, like, what's the difference? What's the difference? People thought Garrett Wilson was an incredible talent. Don't sit up here and tell me today Malik Nabers was a better prospect than Garrett Wilson. You're full of shit if you say that today, because he was the next thing coming. DJ Moore. I'm not talking about the prospect profile of Terry McLaurin, but those situations where the number one target earner was in a bad offense with a bad offensive line and a bad quarterback, and it has not. Find me an example of where it's worked out. Name off the top of your head. Just where has it worked out where it is just a horrible situation, and despite it, somebody went out there and returned the type of value that requires you to invest in Malik Nabers?
You can't, but it's interesting because the names Drake London, Garrett Wilson, DJ Moore all come to mind of if you would have just had them from the start and then the end.
Oh, stop, Gavin. I'm not.
No.
Stop it. Stop, because half of the people out there outside of old Ray GQ, go look at people's drafts going. People didn't even have Malik Nabers mocked in the first round. Second, nowhere to be found. No,
before last season, before November, no one would have put him in Garrett Wilson's
Nobody
range,
had him there. So stop it. I'm not, now, not you, Gavin, but like, by and large, he was not viewed that way until he started to become viewed that way. And that is fact right there.
Yeah, and I think to the point we were going on with Wilson and Moore and Drake London is we know there's going to be a window. I think that's the point of we're talking through this value assessment of a guy like Nabers is you might go, okay, now do I want to pay? Here's the interesting thing. Do I want to pay wide receiver? What is he on KTC? Like wide receiver 7, 8? Somebody in here knows. It's right. It's in the top 8 though. It's too high, right? Do I want to pay that price off the rip to get him? I'd prefer not, because I'm literally passing up on probably something very significant to get him. But I think the other thing is we're talking historically about Garrett Wilson, Drake London. Like those are recent examples, but I think people will learn from those. So if you don't have any Malik Nabers today and you go, I'm just going to wait until he's inefficient with his 150 targets and then I'm going to buy him low. How practical is that actually to happen, right? When the person that has him is already kind of viewing his value assessment through this lens. Is there a buy low on Malik Nabers, or is it more of next March when it looks like they're going to sign a different quarterback or draft a rookie quarterback? What do you have to have then? Conviction, right? That, okay, he is going to be part of this bounce back that is going to include a new quarterback, a new OC, a new head coach maybe. Like, he's going to be what he is, just like you're buying back in on Garrett Wilson now, wide receiver 7. Drake London, wide receiver 10. People went right back to the top 10 with both of those guys. Right back to where you thought they should have been. Off of 2 quarterbacks that are changing teams with blown Achilles. So it's not even like they're ironclad, right? So we already have examples of where the Giants don't have to do much for people to get excited about Malik Nabers again. But I don't think it's easy as I'm going to wait until he's not that great and then buy him low. Because how many people are selling him at that price when they're literally listening to this kind of conversation and going, well, maybe I'm only going to get an inefficient 12 points per game from him this year, but wheels up next year when they fix the QB situation. So I think it's interesting. I want to know how you actually get him shy of paying the market price, because it's much easier said than done.
You don't. You pay the iron price, and let me tell you right now, and then we're going to move on to Justin Fields. When you do it, and he finishes outside of the range in which you paid, and we're expecting, don't come bitching and complaining about he stinks, and he's no good, and he's a bum. Scott, I just name an example where it's played out. Like, the most recent cases are right in front of us with London, with Wilson, and you can say, well, Jones is better than Desmond Ridder, and he's better than whoever the hell Garrett Wilson was catching passes on, probably. But that ain't saying much. That threshold of being better than Desmond Ridder is not a high bar to pass. So this is my dude. I told people he was going to be a top pick. He's an incredible talent. His situation is just very, very scary, Scott. Very, 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 very scary. So I do want to talk about the hot name, and it's a name that you and I have gone back and forth on. Good Lord, Jay Rich and I are always waffling on this player, but Justin Fields.
I mean, you know my stance on him.
Let me start with this. Let me start.
There's a lot to go with here.
Isn't it funny?
You got to tee me up.
Isn't it funny? All they need to do is build around him. Don't you draft that Caleb Williams. Just build around Fields. You never gave him a shot. I ain't heard not a bit of that shit since Caleb Williams started playing. Not one bit of we miss Justin Fields. Goes to Pittsburgh. Scott, there was a fantastic tweet, and I want to give this person the credit, man. It's if you're on X, his Twitter handle is Dynasty Onion. And this is what he said today. Somebody says, there's a tweet and said, yeah, Justin Fields is QB1. 90% of the QBs in the league can't make this play. There's one specific play. Can't make it. Here was his retort to that. Said QB play is more about mistake avoidance than it is about making great plays. Guy who makes plenty of great plays but also makes plenty of mistakes equals backup bust. Guy who almost never makes an error but rarely makes great plays equals a GOAT. So I won't go as far as to say you're going to be a bust or a GOAT, but I do believe that's an excellent point. Like, it's the mistakes. It's not about his physical gifts and tools, man. But when I need you to be consistently accurate, consistently good, deliver the ball consistently on time, that is something that he has consistently failed to show. And to think that here going into year 4, potentially year 5, an NFL offensive coordinator, head coach, or exec is going to tie their career and future to him, like, what are we waiting for? And I think the community is sharp enough to know now that when he does play, because there's going to be an opportunity for him to play in Pittsburgh, whether that be injury or poor play, who is really going to say, oh, hell yeah, I'm sending 2 firsts for Fields now. I'm a trader. I think the community is sharp enough to be like, we're not buying it. It's rotten and I'm not buying it. So what is the goal? What is the goal if you have Fields? And we just did. People are still spending on him in startup auctions, and people are still paying for Fields. What is the desired result? A couple of points in a week or two? Like, what is the goal? I think I'm officially out. I've gone back and forth a lot. I think, and it's not even. I think I'm just done. I'm good with the roller coaster, man.
So I'm going to offer maybe a little bit of a different perspective because I'm still in on Fields, but here's what I'm not in. He's not a good quarterback. A team will never commit to him. An OC or a head coach will never tie their future to him. He's going to move teams probably 5 times in the next 8 years. You hope he can stay healthy and he can still run and his arm is still as strong as it is because there'll always be somebody that's intrigued with letting him play. But you have to decide, what is that price? He is going to win everybody over in Pittsburgh and sign a long-term deal and they're going to start drafting weapons around him. That's the hopium. That's the hopium of as soon as they give him a shot, that's their future QB. You see that on X all the time. The Steelers are thinking about committing to Fields long-term. Okay, sure. They may say that now because they have no clue where they're going to draft. They have no clue what QBs are going to come available. So why wouldn't they let somebody think that could be the potential, right? But my official stance on Fields is he's not a good quarterback. I mean, I've seen 6 people in the chat say he can't read defenses. He can't still be making the same mistakes he made in year 1 or year 2 now. But at the same time, we also know that if he starts, just especially in the system that he's in now, but if he starts, he is a viable fantasy starter, probably a lot higher than the replacement value in your league. So I saw Theo say, you guys were saying buy Fields last week. I still want to buy Fields, but you know what I'm not buying him at is, okay, when they officially give him a shot, because they will give him a shot this year. I don't know if it's week 1. I don't know if it's week 5, week 9, whatever. He will get in there because we have enough evidence to say they have incentive to try him out. And we also have enough evidence on Russell Wilson to say he's worn out his welcome the last 2 places he's started, right? Yeah. So Fields will get a shot. Here's why I want to buy Fields, though. I want to buy him for the long term because he's a backup that whenever he's in there, he's going to give me potential fantasy points. But I'm not buying him at he is a future starter. There's any long-term consistency. Here's what I expect. If I can buy Justin Fields for 2 seconds, I will carve out a roster spot for him. He's in any quarterback on a 2 deep for me for the next 5 fantasy seasons. And if I can start him a dozen times in the next 5 years, that is well worth the picks I'm giving. That's the goal. Not for him to be a starter for an entire season, not for him to get 12 games in a row. It is, I want that bullet saved up in case I need to use it. But that is it. And if you tell me you don't want to use your picks that way for that, because there's no expectation. Once I'm the one that buys like this, right? Guess what I'm probably not doing? Selling him to somebody else, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm not trying to flip him. I mean, sure, I can try. But if my league lets me buy him at this kind of price, nobody's probably going to turn around and go, here, I'll give you a first because it looks like the Steelers are going to start him long term. So I'm buying him for mercenary duty. He is just security. And that is it. And a lot of people in here will say, I am not giving up multiple second-round picks or a second in a young player for that. And that is fine. But that is my case for buying him. But I'm also saying he's a bad quarterback. He's not gotten any better. He does not deserve a team to commit anything to him other than we'll bring him in as our backup and maybe he does some shit that our starter can't do. But that is his career going forward. If you don't want that on your roster, then he's not a buy. So there it is.
All right, Justin Fields. And I see a lot of people saying they take him over Russell Wilson. Drew, what's up, Drew? Drew Sorensen Music. We buy Fields for his legs. Yeah, Stanley, when Scott said 5 years, I'm thinking, the hell, man. I think we could find other darts within that 5-year window to accomplish that.
That's fine. That's fine.
Here's what I think, man. I think people are chasing the shit that he did in Chicago, and what he did in Chicago is not indicative of what he will ever do in the future.
Fair.
I'm good. You know what I mean? That's me.
I just wanted to make a case as to when I say I still am interested in getting him, that is the scope. Because I'll also go on Twitter and go, dude, he's awful at quarterback. You know what I mean? Like, they can both be the same. Gavin put an interesting question in there. Scott, were you treating Jameis Winston the same way? A little bit, but the difference is Jameis Winston, when he starts, if Justin Fields starts, wait until it happens. I will say this right now. Wait until he gets a start this year, okay? Wait until he's in there. Check. Go to Fantasy freaking Pros ECR for that week and tell me where all their rankers cumulatively have Fields on that week.
He'll be top
It'll
15.
be, man, Fields is getting started. He's my QB 10 on the week. Wait a second. You're ranking him over Jared Goff, Brock Purdy, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert, Dak Prescott. Yeah, man, he can run. And depending on the matchup, depending on the situation, I'm not going to argue that. But you know what? He could also be QB 9, throw 2 picks, the Steelers lose, and he's out the next week. And that if you don't want that, then fine. But it is a more of a strategic, theoretical asset to buy for a certain build versus any conviction on Fields.
All right. Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City Chiefs, they're one of the teams that play their starters in the preseason. So we've been able to get a good look at that team, a good look at Patrick Mahomes, a good look at everybody. And this past week, yesterday, the case for Xavier Worthy, Scott, this is why I've been saying all along you want this guy, because of big play potential, big play opportunity. And while it's fun and cute to look at the videos in training camp in practice where he gets jammed and falls down, like the reality is, for those people who are unfamiliar with how the game of football works, that's not going to happen in the real game. They're not going to be able to jam him at the line, press coverage every play. And when you can't do that, you see what happens. Just going back in time, Scott, let's rewind the Dynasty rookie draft. Ladd McConkey, Brian Thomas, Xavier Worthy, they were all kind of jumbled together as the guys after the big 3. Where do you think he should properly and appropriately be slotted today? Just your thoughts on Xavier Worthy in Kansas City, since we're just rookie theme of the show tonight.
So if we're redoing a rookie draft right now, where
you're redoing it right now. Where's he go? With all the information that we know, McCarthy, Knicks, I don't want everything we know. Where's he go today?
Well, he's definitely going
late. He was going late one. Late
first, yeah. Wide receiver 5, probably right around Brooks, Penix, Knicks, right in that range. You had to make a decision whether you wanted one of the quarterbacks or you wanted Brooks versus one of the receivers. So he's clearly separated from, like, Ladd McConkey was going right around Xavier Worthy. That's not even close today, right? You had McConkey, you had Worthy, you had Brian Thomas, all in some tier. BTJ versus Worthy is interesting. I think he's clearly behind the big 3. He's clearly behind May. He's definitely behind Caleb and Daniels. Brooks, I think right now, if you told me what asset I wanted in Dynasty, it ain't close. People would not want the injured running back. And you knew that if you drafted Brooks, right? You knew there was going to be this window where he's not available.
Yeah, pass.
So I think you could probably argue him, 108? Ahead of McCarthy, we already said. I think some people would take him ahead of McCarthy because of the injury. Brock Bowers, I mean, tell you what, depending on the premium, I would probably consider him over Brock Bowers. That's an interesting one. Yeah. I mean, here's the thing, right? With Hollywood Brown injured, we think, oh, man, the Worthy hype is really increasing. What if he has a Hollywood Brown week 1 where he gets 2 touchdowns? I'm going
to push everybody right now, because this.
Here we go.
Why not over Rome Odunze? Why not? Why not?
I think there's a little bit of what we already talked about with Malik Nabers with Rome Odunze. He's got a built-in excuse, and he is tied to a quarterback that people like. That is the only reason, is Odunze has a built-in excuse. If he is not one of the top 2 target earners, people will go, well, that's because he had Keenan Allen and he had DJ Moore. But I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm curious what people think.
I'm taking him over BTJ pretty easily at this point.
That's fair. Yes.
Like, that would be pretty easy. And I do think there's a world in which my thing, I'm just asking the question. Why? Colin said it. Why not over Nabers? Look, I think here's what I think
we talking asset ascension here, or I mean, I'm curious.
I mean, talk about it however you want. Asset ascension, production, whatever you want. Let's tickle me for a minute, Scott. Let's go down a world in which he fucking smashes this year with Mahomes. I'm not talking Puka Nacua break records, but he is clearly going to be Jalen Waddle levels of good with Patrick. Like, are we Patrick Mahomes here, right?
What if he has Rashee Rice's stats last year? He goes 80 for 1,000, and he scores 8 touchdowns, and he outproduces every other KC receiver.
Too. They're big play. Mahomes
highlight
gets to
plays.
Wind back and just launch it wide open. Boom. Why not? Why not? Do we not think that this asset, like for years, we have been searching for Mahomes to get another Tyreek Hill replacement. Then he gets one that's actually pretty good, who's going to get opportunity because Hollywood Brown is injured. He's going to play even more. Like, do we not think his value can ascend? The only people who are safe are Nabers and Penix and Caleb Williams, and nobody else has any kind of value security. I'm just asking the question.
Well, let me ask you this, because Nate, can you name the biggest riser in Underdog ADP in the last 7 days?
Yeah, probably Xavier Worthy.
It's not Worthy. I believe this is the second biggest riser. Nope.
Well, I don't know.
And you wouldn't think of it because nothing really concrete has happened with this player. But as a whole, the community just starts to kind of come to a realization and they go, wait a second.
Give me the conference.
It's AFC. Receiver.
Okay. Division.
AFC West.
AFC West receiver? Rashee Rice?
Same team as Xavier Worthy. Yes, Rashee Rice.
Okay.
People have come around to
wait,
I've heard it on no less than half a dozen pods over the last 2 weeks. Wait a second, like he's not going to get suspended. And then people start diving deeper into his data and they're like, dude, this guy's going to lead the team in targets. And then all of a sudden you see him now wide receiver 25 in Underdog. And nothing's really happened, right? Other than he hasn't been suspended. And since it hasn't happened yet, doesn't mean it couldn't happen. We don't know. But it's funny how the community has pushed Rashee Rice up. Here's what I want to ask you. I think Worthy and Rice are both guys that could have massive rise. But I think that also comes, if both of them are going to do it, it's going to come with a clear Travis Kelce step back / drop off. And I don't know if that happens, but if it does, I can see the community next year going, Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy is the next. This is the tandem, right? This is the tandem in the league that you have to have. They're both top 15 dynasty receivers. They play different roles, so they're not competing with each other, but they're tied to Mahomes. Kelce is out of the way, or not out of the way, but you know what I mean. He's clearly taken like a Jason Witten style career where he's the third option.
34, yes. Like at some point it's going to get dialed back.
Correct.
Some. It just will.
So I'm even curious what that looks like. Because I was shocked when I went in and looked at where Rashee Rice has been going. And it's just flat out, if you get to round 4 in Underdog, it's like, I'll just take Rashee Rice. You know who I don't want? Zay Flowers. You know who I don't want? George Pickens. Like, he just has gone over those guys. So it's just interesting. The 2 biggest rising receivers are on the same team, and they're both Chiefs. Now, the Hollywood Brown injury probably contributes to both of those, right? He gets out of the way, and the other 2 are going to move up just because people were waiting.
It gives Worthy the opportunity to go out there and seize it. It does. And Shane says every wide receiver, shout out to Shane, man. Every wide receiver except Hill tied to Mahomes didn't help. Like, it didn't help their value, right? All of them, who was any damn good?
Isn't that why people were not as excited about Worthy? He was like 3 years late for his own good, basically.
And the beautiful thing about that offense is they play completely different roles. It feels like what the Chargers were trying to do with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. I could see Rashee Rice just 100 receptions. He is just going to dominate in the short and intermediate stuff. And the people who didn't see this coming, go to DestinationDevy.com, sign up and use the Trinity tool. If you're trying to find shit on wide receivers, there's no better opportunity predictor than the score that we created, period. Because it's very easy to just see, yep, he was asked to do that stuff. Easy buy. One of the highest roster players that I have in Underdog. And it doesn't look like he's going to be suspended. But this world in which there are only a couple of, and there was a comment in here. I think it was it was Colin. It may have been Colin or somebody said clear path to Xavier Worthy tethered to Mahomes being a legitimate, having a wide receiver one season. Like, it's not hard to see. I don't know why people are so. It's Patrick Mahomes. I saw Cody put in the chat their offensive situation. I don't give a shit about the 5 mouths they have to feed. It's Patrick Mahomes. He's already thrown for 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns in a season. Like, you're looking for a player to invest in a good offense. Kansas City, point blank period. Give me Chiefs, man. I want an asset that they have lacked for years. They haven't had somebody competent enough to do this, to unlock the offense, to open up that shell coverage. Now you've got that guy. You got 2 of them. Hollywood will be back. You got Kelsey and Rashee Rice underneath, and you got a strong running game. There's a real possibility that, like, everybody across the board is very good in Kansas City. And I'm just going to push I think if we had to redo it right now, he needs to be inside the top 6. He'd be a top 6 rookie pick. I don't even know if I'd take freaking Drake May over Xavier Worthy. I don't know if I would. I really don't know if I would even do that. Just my thoughts.
That is, I can see the Bowers versus Worthy, just depending on how the tight end is viewed in your league. I think a lot of people would push back on you on Drake May versus Bowers. Drake May versus Worthy.
I'd take him over all the quarterbacks not named Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams. Flat out. I can do more with that than I can with Bo Nix or especially Drake May, because I know he's going to have opportunity, but people are not buying into New England. I can do more with that catch in the preseason than I can do anything with any of those other guys.
Yeah. It's hot. Now, not so much about their I wanted to ask you real quick. Are you just done drafting Chiefs backup running backs since it's been 3 different guys over the last month?
Yeah. I'm not fooling around with Hayden Winks back there, man. Carson Steele. If you didn't watch Wake Up last week, I put a picture up of Carson Steele. He looks just like Hayden Winks, man. Shout out to Hayden, Underdog. He looks just like him, man. He looks just like him, just bigger, more muscular. I'm not fooling with him. I don't know if it's Prince, CEH, Carson Steele. I don't know, man. I'm not touching no backup Chiefs running back. I'm good.
All right, we've gone an hour. What do you want to hit?
Well, let's look in the chat real quick. We're at time. Let's see if there's anything good. New Balance, Carson Steele. People not talking enough about May's legs. Yeah, May's gonna run, man. May's gonna run. New England is just where it's going to be an interesting season. Jatavian Sanders, shout out. Kev, in effect, yes. JT Sanders playing well. I like JT Sanders. I think he is going to be a nice little tight end in the league. I'm not going to go and say he's going to be some top asset or a Pro Bowler, but I like what I'm seeing and reading about Jatavian Sanders. I get it. People will go crazy over Worthy. You probably can get a haul for him. That's it, King. That's it. I'm not saying he's the better long-term super flex dynasty asset, but in this world in which we live, where people want shit out the microwave right now and they don't have time to wait for production or wait for Drake May to finish his QB 27 on the season, the things that I can do with Xavier Worthy catching those 2 passes, man, like, people are like, here we go. Can't believe the NFL effed up and let the Chiefs get this dude. Here we go. I can do more with that, and I've got the conviction in my process that I've got the discipline to do the things necessary. I could do more with X Worthy than anybody outside of those big kind of 4 guys, JD, Marv, Nabers, Odunze, and Caleb. So I guess 6. I guess he would be top 6 then, because I'm still those are like the big guys, right? But he's right there. I'm taking him above any of them quarterbacks, man. Jalen Warren, injury out a few weeks with the hammy. What RBs would you not trade Worthy? What RBs would you not trade for Worthy or Rice?
I mean, that's a loaded topic, because that's essentially like saying what running backs would you rather have over them? And the way we play running back, I mean, we don't have to get into our startup draft, but if this is your show where you want hot takes on certain running backs, this is probably not the show. Both of us are just. You
probably won't like what we have to say about
some live bodies, basically. So yeah, I think right now, would you rather have Worthy or Saquon for what you can do with it?
Yeah,
Say it.
I want Saquon Barkley. I'm scoring. I'm winning. I want I think that's
Okay.
I would not be
So there's your
trading my
line.
Saquon for Xavier Worthy. I would not do that. No.
Okay.
And I would
Okay.
take him higher in a startup than I would Xavier Worthy. Yes. Saquon
Fair.
Barkley.
Are you
Make sure y'all
happy
wake
now,
up.
Ray? We can start drafting some Raiders QBs. You can finally draft a couple. I was not drafting any. Because they have a starter now. What does that mean?
The quarterback
what
for
is your
now?
30-second underdog reaction to the Raiders naming a QB? Is there an angle?
Trey Tucker. Trey Tucker for free. Round 18, get Trey Tucker. In Dynasty, Jackson Smith and Jigba or Xavier Worthy, Scott? Is this even close for you?
No.
It's Xavier Worthy.
Because of what you've laid out the case. And it has nothing to do with who we think is a better receiver.
No,
which one would I rather have today? Yes.
I think JSN is a complete receiver, but if you're asking me who I'd rather have, there's no doubt it would be Xavier Worthy. All right, tomorrow morning, make sure y'all wake up bright and early. Wake up. Me and Jay Rich, I called Scott Jay, but we are going to talk about it. Caleb Williams, Xavier Worthy, Braylon Allen, everybody. All 32 teams tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Eastern time. We're going to give it to you, baby. This is the last week that Wake Up is 1 day a week. Starting the following week will be 3 days a week. So I'm really excited about that. And Scott, anything you want to hit the people with before we get out of here?
No, I mean, this has been a fun offseason. It has been more active than I can remember. I guess maybe that's just because I've done so much Underdog that you kind of have to always be literally following the pulse of all of these players. But I'm excited for the season to get here. On Destination Dynasty, I'm going to be putting out a couple episodes. Not this one. We got a real special one this week that's going to be a great conversation for the Dynasty degenerates. You're going to enjoy Destination Dynasty that drops tomorrow. But the next couple episodes after that are going to be the true grinder shows. The any QB on a 2 deep, the any running back on a 53. Like, I'm going to give a glimpse as to what exactly I'm trying to mix up with my roster construction before we get to the season, because you only have a couple weeks, probably less than 2 weeks, honestly, at this point, because once the preseason's over, people are usually set, prepared for the start of the season. So exactly what I'm going to be doing over the next 2 weeks. So the degenerates are going to want to tune in to the next 3 episodes. So excited for the season. Only a couple more destination chills, and then we're going to change the cadence on this as well.
Yeah. That's another thing. There's only a couple of more of these. Destination chill we'll take a break on the end season. We'll do some different things. And if you're part of the community, you will definitely not want to miss what we got coming up. So thank you for everybody. Colin, yeah, you got it, baby. Hit that like button. And Drew, don't trip, man. We said we'd take Worthy over JSN, not JSN over Worthy. Andy Dalton content. You love to see it. Andy Dalton, what's going down? Best Ball Breakfast. Yeah, I'm going to be on Best Ball Breakfast with Overzet tomorrow morning. So make sure you check into that, or tomorrow afternoon. I think it's like noon, 12, 1 o'clock, something like that. So check that out. Got a lot of good shit coming, man. We appreciate everybody. We love everybody.